Uh,
because boy did a lot happen.
my
Boy
morning
has a
was
lot.
screwed.
Yeah.
And also, my
Ada
week has been hectic.
Ada has had a very rough week. Uh
But it's all coming
I
together.
did not pass out till like 9,
You got kidnapped for freaking
10.
Splatoon.
Yeah, I got kidnapped for the most cursed time of Splatoon I've ever had, and I would not have it any other way. It was the best.
Yeah! It was the
Um,
best fun.
yeah, yeah.
I know for a fact
Oh,
that it is it was great to watch all the things that
bruh.
so he has an OnlyFans.
Don't just lead with that.
How can I
You simp.
not? Woo! Listen, I'm a simp for many people.
Nah, you right, cause same.
Oh,
I
but
get you.
Anubis, Shiri, and Ashley, hello, babies. Hello, hello, hello.
Hello,
Oh my God.
everybody. Hello.
Tomorrow.
Yup. Oh my god, I fucking love that clip
That's
so
my
much.
status.
I know.
That's been my status all day. Tomorrow.
It is the one of the best fucking clips.
Oh my God.
Just fucking tomorrow.
Dude. Oh my God. Also, guys, do you like the new set? I worked a bit.
Ada worked very hard to get us a nice little decorated set for dead hair.
You like my tentacles?
Yeah, say got
Don't
the
worry what
stink
they're
gas, we got
gonna
the
do.
tentacles. Yeah, don't worry about them. Don't worry about what they're up to.
But they're my magical tentacle buddies. It's Bob. Bob and his brothers.
Bob. Yeah, Bob and his brothers. Bob, Steve,
Dick and ball spoon. Anubis, I swear to God.
Well, not the first person to notice it, sadly.
Yep.
Sadly, someone beat you to that.
It was me.
Someone beat you to that one.
Oh, but yeah, I worked a bit on the I was gonna put Happy Halloween on like the banner, but not the whole month is Halloween.
Yeah, I feel like Spooky Month also just fits better as well.
Yeah, trying to find and mesh a text to that kind of banner was actually painful.
I can only imagine. It is such a struggle to do like banners and shit like that. So
Yeah.
I commend you for being able to get it done and to make it look so good as well.
Yeah, I have tried my hardest with doing these goods.
Did fantastically. Oh, but yeah, hello to everybody in the chat, to Anubis, to Shiri, to Ashley. I hope you guys are all doing well today. It is wonderful to see you guys all.
Yeah.
We are here to do the goods. It is not going to be a full-length episode of Dead Hair today.
Yeah, I have things
due to quite a lot of circumstances outside the show. Ada is very, very busy prepping today for stuff going on tomorrow for her.
Yeah.
I am fucking so dead. My throat feels...
Yeah, because you're freaking dying of laughter freaking today at freaking like, what was it, 3 a.m.?
No, it was like 6.
Because when I woke up at like 3 a.m., right, I saw you on a silly stream, and you were just freaking cackling like no tomorrow, aka the conversations you guys are having actually made me want to cry.
Oh, 3 hours of some of the most cursed Splatoon conversations.
Caustic steals eggs from women when he goes down. All right.
Yeah.
I just want it to be Sunday already. Same. My body spazzes.
When you think about it, the excitement.
Yeah, when I think about it, my body spazzes, and I think I'm having a seizure.
No, I get you. It's about how I get whenever I think about things I have planned coming up.
Yeah, but oh my God, let me tell you about my morning.
Oh please.
So
tell me about it. Regale chat with the struggles.
So I woke up around 3 a.m. somewhere around that area because I don't know why I woke up, honestly, but I was wide awake and I could not go back to sleep even if I wanted to. And so, I went out just like, good morning, everybody. And then freaking I saw that Sully was streaming, and then I saw Lich was being like, "I've been kidnapped," and so I went over to Sully's stream, and I just see
Yup.
this man's Zero and Sully playing Splatoon. I get in there, and I'm just like,
It was.
I tried playing Slime Rancher too. I couldn't concentrate on anything.
You were fucking cackling, apparently.
I was choking. I choked on my soda multiple times. I was coughing. I was crying. I couldn't do anything in my power to stop anything from happening.
You were just fucking dying. It was
I was!
so bad.
And then freaking after I woke up, I grabbed Lich by the balls and I freaking dragged him into League, playing a few rounds with
It's
me.
true. It's true. I got
But,
dragged
oh
off after
boy!
Splatoon to play some Lego Legends, and ooh, those matches were something.
Those matches were great. They were great. And then freaking I forgot that I had to go with my mom to the store to deposit my money into my bank card because my PayPal is broken currently.
Only to
And I
discover.
wasn't able to do it because my bank, whatever the heck, ATM, don't care, doesn't let me deposit money thingy into the card thingy. And so now I just have this loose money on me that I can't even probably spend anything with it.
What
I'm
do you
broke.
mean?
I'm
What do you
sad.
You could spend loose money. What the hell you talk about, you goobus?
Dude, I'm not gonna give someone a freaking $100. I have $300 in my hands right now.
Well, that's why you take it. That's why you take it somewhere. I would say if you guys were at a bank, you should have.
We weren't at a bank. We were at a CVS.
Ah, okay. Well, you could have taken it to the teller and had them break it down for you.
Oh, we did not have time for that. It was morning.
No, I get you, but no.
Oh my god! Where we picked up our groceries! I gotta tell you this.
Oh no. Go on.
Oh my god! So, we pick up our groceries. We use HEB curbside because it was just easier because we didn't want to go in the store.
Yeah.
And so we went inside. We didn't go inside. We parked next to this dude. He was blaring freaking what's his name?
Yeah.
Oh my god, what's his name? Just this famous singer. He was singing, this dude was singing his heart out next to us. And then in the very, very end of it, we all just got the song stuck in our head.
So you got basically.
We got deposit at the teller 5 head. I can't, Anubis, you freaking 85 head. I freaking hate it. Hello, TC.
That really sucks, though.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do.
Your bank is something. Your bank is something.
Yeah,
else.
we're looking for a different bank since this bank is trash.
Yeah, it has been giving you nothing but troubles lately.
Yeah. It sucks that my PayPal isn't working, which I don't understand why my PayPal isn't working.
That is something you need to call them about. That is you have to, well, not even call, but you have to like message support. That there's sadly no other way to fix PayPal issues aside from DMing support.
Hey, Anubis, thank you so much for the do what's up.
Yeah, let's go.
I like that there's noxious gases emitting from Lich's hindquarters. Listen.
Always is. God.
But I've had a morning. And then I was so upset and so angry. I just needed to calm down. And so I just grabbed the donut, chomped it down, and passed out.
Yep. You laid down.
For like 4 hours.
Rested for a couple hours.
I feel better, but I'm also still extremely tired.
I mean, I'd be equally as, like, upset and tired. Like, that's so fucking frustrating.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have to figure out something because I want to buy my own things. You fucking hear me? Actually, I'm buying my own things.
Genuinely and truly, like I said, maybe when Ryu's driving you out tomorrow, have him stop you at a bank on the way out, and they can break the money down for you.
Don't I have to have a lot of info?
No. exchanging money and like having them like break it down into smaller bills. That's something like banks and stuff like that can do. That's also something you can do at literally any store. Most of the time, a lot of stores will be willing to break bills down for you.
Man, Texas is not like that. I'd have to actually go to a big bank.
But yeah, I would say there's options. You could ask Ryu about it
Yeah,
if it becomes like an issue tomorrow.
yeah.
He
Because
will
I'm not sure
assist.
how long the drive will be, honestly. I don't want to make it any
Yeah,
too longer longer.
yeah. Don't you worry, none. He can
Yeah!
the boy can assist you. Um,
Yeah! I can
but yeah,
do adult things.
yeah. It will not be too big an issue.
Yeah. Ada's
You will be
driving somewhere.
a
I'm not driving.
no. It is being
So
driven.
I'll tell you about. I'll freaking tell. I'll tell anyone about this plan. All right. So
Yup.
tomorrow, I'm
Huh.
freaking. Rai is driving me all the way to Waco to meet some of my closest, like pretty much like childhood friends.
Mhm.
And Ashley, motherfucker, I'm gonna meet Ashley.
Yup.
And we're gonna be freaking. First, we're going to Barnes and Noble. That's where I'm
Mhm.
going to jump on them. And then
Yup.
I'm gonna get a frappuccino.
Oh, the frappy.
And then Chick-fil-A. We're gonna get the homophobic chicken.
Yup.
And then we're gonna go to the
As people
mall. And then we're gonna go exploring. We're gonna go to an arcade. And then we're gonna head over to my other friend's house. And then we're gonna order McDonald's because I will get my nuggies.
Oh God, I actually genuinely
And
want to get
that is the plan.
McDonald's.
And I'm so excited. Oh, I've been to Waco. Yeah! I've passed through
Yes.
Waco before while going to the con.
Yeah.
That place
you drove
built
through.
different.
I'm
I'm
You
so
are gonna have a great time tomorrow. I'm super duper excited for you guys. I hope it is nothing but fun.
Dude, I'm so freaking excited. My freaking hands are sweating and my butt's sweating.
To be fair, isn't your butt always sweating when we do dead hair?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why.
Well, we do talk a lot, and we do get
Yeah.
into some questionable subjects.
Yeah, we sure do. But,
Oh.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, it's super duper exciting.
Oh, God. I'm gonna pee myself, my guy.
I get you, fam. Oh my goodness, excuse me. I am also just extremely exhausted.
Waco is just pre-game lobby. Yeah.
Basically.
Puppies.
Oh my god. Oh, but yeah, I would say it's super duper exciting. You got that coming up
I'm so-
tomorrow.
Excited, but I'm so
Yeah.
nervous.
It's gonna be great. You're gonna have a great time, madam.
Yeah, I'm so happy for you, and I hope you have tons of fun. Yeah, it'll be
Yeah.
freaking great. And I know for a fact I'm going to punch the living Christ out of my two friends.
No,
Actually,
I get you.
a little punch, because I'll be probably. I'm not gonna cry. I swear to God, I'm not gonna cry.
You sure about that?
No,
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I'm a very emotional person, emotionally sensitive person.
No, I get
Sure,
you. 'cause
buddy.
same.
Ashley, please. If I cry, just slap me.
Uh-huh.
Just slap me.
My boys will just slap me.
The shock will take over, and I won't cry anymore.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
The shock. That's called trauma.
it sure is. No, I'm not gonna get close and kiss you. You'll make me cry more.
Dog.
Bro, I'm gonna freaking start just having a freaking mental breakdown.
Oh, I full on understand though. I mean, that's just how it be sometimes when it comes to like long distance relationships. When you finally like get to be with the person and stuff like that after a while.
Like, oh my god. I'm also so excited just to meet my two other friends.
Yeah, it's super duper exciting.
Oh, I'm so excited to meet them as well and see like freaking I've seen pictures of them before, you know, the kind of stuff, but I'm not
Yeah.
sure how much has changed.
Yeah.
And if
get
they
you.
still look stupid.
Yeah, I get you, fam. I get you.
Yeah. Also, Medjay funny hero. What?
Huh?
Ada meeting friends. Yeah. She's taking my hoodie and toucan hat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm stealing.
Well, it's not stealing if it's being given willingly.
Shut up. It's stealing. It's
Uh-huh.
stealing. Shh.
Uh-huh.
Don't worry about it. It's stealing. It's stealing. I'm
Okay.
stealing it. I'm taking it and I'm stealing it.
Okay. Stealing. You know,
Yeah,
I get
I'm
you.
stealing. I'm stealing. I go, rah.
Is that your stealing sound? Is that the sound of you stealing?
Here, I'm gonna
Yep.
put my freaking tabs in my
Yeah.
container.
I get you. You do what you
I have
gotta
so
do.
many!
Yeah, you've collected a lot already. Almost got the whole thing full. It's filling
Oh,
slowly.
it's not almost. It just covers the bottom. That's it. Again, my hoodie is perfumed in my cologne.
Cologne.
When you first put it on, you're probably going to choke. Nah, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna and then I'm going to choke.
Lord.
1 minute, drop one.
Oh no, don't drop them. Those are
I know I
important.
dropped one. But yeah, I'll probably choke because you said it was like bourbon.
Ooh, good old bourbon. It's good.
Yeah.
Bourbon.
I heard bourbon's an alcohol, so I'm actually might start crying.
It can be. It's more so like the flavoring of it, so to speak.
I'm gonna smell like an alcoholic.
It's okay. That's just how I smell all the time.
Bruh, you haven't had alcohol in a whole generation. What do you mean?
Yeah, but you know, it's like that aura, that permeation doesn't go away.
Bruh.
It follows
Bruh.
you.
Bruh. Oh yeah! Actually, just in case, when I went to the Five Below, I made sure to get a first aid kit. So whatever happens, I'm safe.
Yeah.
And I have band-aids and stuff like that because we all know for a fact I don't get hurt.
Yeah, they took a note from Yarun's book and they got themselves a first aid kit.
I got myself a little first aid kit. I got a lot of stuff. There's gauze. There's a few band-aids. There's these cleaning wipe thingies. And what else was there? I don't remember.
It was a little bit of everything.
Yeah! But God, I'm so excited. Hello, Fizzy!
Yeah, it is gonna be fantastic.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I've been telling everybody
Yeah.
about this day, and I feel annoying for it.
No, to be fair though, you kind of gotta you kind of have to tell everybody, because I feel like if you didn't, every motherfucker under the sun would be DMing you tomorrow, being like, hey, what's going on?
Yep,
Haven't
yep.
seen you online all day.
Yep,
You've been
full
like
on.
coming offline and online.
Yep. Yes, but also it doesn't smell like the alcohol bourbon. It's just a Bath and Body Works product. Oh, okay. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
it's a special
better.
one.
Because I don't want
Yeah.
to smell like an alcoholic because I actually don't like the smell of alcohol at all. I don't know
Yeah,
why.
alcohol.
It just smells bad. Smells to taste bad.
Yeah,
I feel like I'd be more of a
remember-
wine person.
Yeah. I think I remember us talking about this before, but in terms of
Yeah.
like alcohol and drinking, you'd be more probably geared towards wines and ciders. 'Cause they're
Yeah.
sweeter, and they actually have a flavor that's good.
I also, every time I think about wine, I just think about cranberry juice, and I'm just sitting here just like, oh, I love cranberry juice.
Oh, cranberry juice is so goddamn good, though.
I used to have to drink cranberry juice because of my freaking body was just failing.
No, I get you. Listen, cranberry juice is super duper, like, good to drink.
Yeah.
If you eat a lot of unhealthy stuff or drink a lot of unhealthy stuff, always
Soda.
have a cup of cranberry juice every now and again.
Yep, I'm drinking cranberry juice right now. TC, you finna share?
It's, I would say, it's super duper good for your body.
Yeah, it is. Because I know for a fact, normally, freaking, after my surgery happened and stuff like that, my body was just gross. And every time I would drink cranberry juice, I just felt everything better.
Yeah,
TC,
I would say
you're not gonna
it
share
helps.
with me?
It helps, like, filter the body some. Give you
Yeah.
some,
I just put sanitizer on a boo-boo on my finger.
ooh, that good burn, though.
Oh, that good burned out. Ooh, I'm a moan.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Don't worry about it, fam.
Uh-huh. Motherfucker said I'm a moan.
I'm a moan. Oh. But yeah, I know for a fact, I think I gave Rai all the information that he needs. All he needs to
Yeah.
know, I'll give him the other info as well that I know of.
Yeah, give him
Just
your
in
guys'
case.
give him your guys'
Bruh,
full plan
that'll
so he knows.
be the last car drive I ever do with Rai.
Yeah, it genuinely might be. But that's also assuming he doesn't like plan something for before he leaves with you.
Yeah, bro, you
'Cause
think
we
he's gonna
know-
do that?
Well, Ryu's a sentimental sod.
I mean, the bitch. Can't believe he's leaving.
He's a sentimental motherfucker.
My free
I don't think you'll be able
rides
to help himself.
to Frappuccino Town.
That's okay. You still got Uber to get your frappuccinos when you need them.
Yeah, I'm blessed to Uber.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, where is he going? Izzy!
Izzy!
I love you,
Ooh.
Izzy! He's driving me to Waco!
No,
He's
I think they mean after, because you said he's
Oh! Not here!
He's moving state. He's gonna be moving state in the coming months. And
Yeah.
he will not be in Texas no longer.
Yeah! He's not gonna be around me anymore! He got tired of my shit.
Yeah, tired of my shit. Uh-huh.
Yeah!
But
Ah!
actually, Izzy being here is a good little segue for us to talk about upcoming stuff.
Yeah!
So, chat, as you guys know, it is indeed the spooky month. And basically, for the 3 weeks that we have coming up for Dead Hair, we're going to be doing some special episodes where we focus on certain topics and subjects and stuff like that. And we're going to try to bring in guests if we can manage. And next week, we will be bringing in Izzy to discuss monsters. And
we're going to discuss monsters and potential companionship
fucking
of the monsters.
fucking.
We gotta do the goods. Because I know for a fact. I'm a monster poker.
Yeah, no, same. Izzy's one of us.
Yup, very, very much.
Yep. But yeah, I say we're gonna be discussing the monsters and all the good goods involved with them.
Yeah!
And just hanging out with Izzy next week. So that's gonna be super duper exciting. Make sure to keep your guys' eyes peeled for that.
Yeah! It's gonna be exciting! Dab!
Yeah.
Dab!
I'm super duper excited for it.
I know I'm excited for it because I know for a fact that it's perfect for like a spooky
100%.
month thing and also bringing in someone.
Yeah,
it aligns
absolutely.
perfectly, and she's a monster fucker, so you know.
And what? And what better person than Izzy though? Because Izzy's also just wonderful and just such a delight to be around. Like, goodness gracious, they're so sweet.
Yeah, they're baby. I love Izzy so much. Izzy is a beat. They got me into Final Fantasy 14. Hold on, we're stopping it right there. They got me into the Final Fantasy 14.
It's so goddamn funny.
I'm going to die. I was kidnapped. I was dragged by the ankles by Izzy because they bought me an external.
By your face. Actually grabbed by your face and told you're playing Final Fantasy 14.
They actually just full. You know the freaking emoji of just a really scary emoji with the hands?
Yep.
They just grabbed me by the neck. It was just like, you're getting this no matter what. And I'm just like,
so funny. Ada could do nothing.
I could do nothing. But you know for a fact, you know what I'm gonna do? You know what I'm gonna do, Izzy? I'm gonna draw your vampire baby.
Got him.
Just because I feel like I need to pay you back because that external was expensive. This external was expensive. So I'm gonna draw your baby girl. I'm gonna draw your baby girl.
Baby girl.
I'm gonna draw your baby girl with my vampire baby girl.
Yeah.
It wasn't expensive, Screams. It was. You can't argue with me on this. You got me into Final Fantasy 14. At least let me do this.
Argue with me with this. I'm gonna cry.
I'm being honest.
No, I get you. I agree. Listen, I fully support this plan.
Exactly, because I know for a fact though is that I really do enjoy drawing Violet because she's actually such a well designed
Yeah.
and just such a pretty character.
Dude, it's almost like Izzy's super duper good at like
It's almost
art
like
and
Izzy
character
is sort of like an art
creation.
god and just can
Yeah,
do
and like
anything.
yeah, and like you know, like oh my fingies is slipping.
Oh, oh no, your fingers,
Oh
they're
my
slipped. But
goodness.
oh my god,
Oh,
I
how
can't
clumsy.
believe it.
How clumsy of me.
How clumsy! Oh my
Well, while
god.
it's there, you guys should make sure to go check out Izzy because they
Stretch you
have.
apart like Why is it food again? Why is it food all the time? Just threats of food, threats of being bored by Izzy. Hunger, I understand, but you gotta understand something. I don't think people like being food.
Oh god.
I don't think people like being food. Huh? Don't worry about it,
Uh,
Ashley. Don't worry about it, my love.
well, some people do.
Stop
Some
it.
people do.
Stop it.
Question mark.
Stop it. Stop it.
You
Don't
just
give Izzy an excuse.
You just name the people that like it.
I zoned out, and first I hear is something about being bored. Yeah, Izzy bores things they find sincere and like cute and kind of stuff. That's not
Yeah.
me. I don't do
There-
that. I just like biting.
No, you strangle. You
Oh,
strangle.
I strangle, I bite, because that's just my sadism.
Yeah.
I bore things.
Izzy's cuteness aggression is just consumption. Ada's cuteness aggression is attacking.
Yeah, that's what I do. I like to strangle things, even though I can't fit my hands around things most of the time.
Yeah, but you try.
So it's just
you
like
know.
a gentle attempt.
Yeah. A gentle attempt on someone's life.
A gentle attempt. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
no, I get you. I get you. God, it's so funny. But yeah, in that note, Ada has actually started getting into Final Fantasy 14.
Yes.
Got a whole-
So far, I'm gonna be making a lot of art. I'm gonna
Yep, yep,
be
yep.
trying to get better, so I don't feel like a
Uh-huh.
burden upon the players around me, aka Zero, Izzy, and Lich.
I grab you by the face. You think I'm a pro player? You think I'm a pro player?
I freaking you understand a lot of the things is what I mean.
What you been huffing? I ain't pro nothing.
I've been huffing some copium.
Yo,
I
same.
ain't gonna lie.
Yo, say.
I freaking huff my inhaler juice. I be higher than a kite.
No, I get you. I get you. That's fair. But yeah, I say, trust me when I say, rapidly, you'll pick the game up. It's
I freaking
very,
hope so.
very good at teaching.
I freaking hope so because Jesus Lord Jesus Christ, I
Yeah.
want to be better because I do
mean-
enjoy the game. The Archer and I'm RRR.
Yeah.
RR.
Aura.
Aura.
Literally think of it as aura.
Aura.
Yeah.
Aura. Aura.
Gravy train.
Don't worry, it's got a tutorial later for your class before you even get into your first dungeon.
Yeah. There's a little thingy you
Okay,
can.
that's good.
Yeah, there's also a little thingy you can do to get gear as well. That'll be like really good gear for you.
I understand.
Yeah, it'll basically carry you through to you can start getting bigger, better gear and stuff like that.
Why do my legs look so large?
Oh.
I look
Chunky?
down, I freaking look like I take up half the chair. What the
Well.
My fighter day.
Yeah, I would say you do got them thick thighs.
Oh, gotta get the pic.
Mhm,
Spider
mhm,
thing.
mhm. It's a shame that you don't have your black tights because you could have wore those for Thider Day.
Oh, that's depressing.
Yeah, I get you.
I do need to. Let me check the order real quick.
Yeah, find out what's going on with it. There's something so funny to me about the fact that it seems like that order and your external got swapped.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
Yeah.
All right, so it's the estimate time is the what was it? Freaking. It didn't tell me.
Before it said it was coming on the 14th.
All right, let me see here. Track package. It's shipped.
Mm-mm-mm-mm.
View order details. Bro, what's going to get here?
Yeah. What was it? A batch. Where's my shit at?
It actually just not telling me. That is sad because I know for a
Damn.
fact that would have been nice.
Yeah, that's okay.
Sad.
No, it's okay. You could just do
Sad.
normal fighter day for everyone. Oh my goodness gracious. But yeah, I would say. So that is our general plan for the month coming up. We're gonna be doing lots of spooky stuff, lots of things here and there. Uh,
Spooky.
yeah.
You know what I
And
want?
what?
I want to plan one of the dead hairs to just like watch spooky like short clips.
Oh, I think that'd be cool. Watch like those the Nukes top 5 kind of stuff.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be so much fun. I love Nukes Top 5 so much.
Same. The fucking horror videos and shit. It's so good. I full on get you. Nah, I understand. It's a good song. A very good song. Oh my goodness.
Bro, where is this bruise?
Probably when you slapped your thigh too hard.
I don't know why. I get random bruises sometimes and I don't understand.
Honestly, I understand though, because same. I will literally just have bruises on my side or like on my neck, and I'm just like, what? Where? Why? How?
No, I get you.
Yeah, it's
Like, what happened to my thighs?
Yeah, it's always that as well. It's like, where? Why? How? Huh? Anemia.
Anemia? What is that?
I have had enough blood work done that I don't think I have anemia. I think they would have told me by now. I hope. I hope they would have told me if I have that by now.
I'm going to pee. You can't do this to me.
God help me, it's so funny. Anemia.
Yes, I have the anemia. I think I'll skip today's Saturday because of all the bruises I have on me.
That's fair. That's fair.
Because those are a lot.
If you're randomly getting bruises, could be clotting related as well.
Izzy, are you giving? Stop giving me anxiety for this! I swear to God.
Or you're just clumsy.
Except my students who haven't turned in any assignments yet. That ain't me. I ain't your student. I know that for a fact.
Sounds like me when I was in school.
Bruh,
Waiting
I
for the last
understand. Unless you're clumsy. Oh, we know for a fact I'm a freaking klutz. We know that.
Well, I'm not gonna disagree.
You know how many times I've slipped in the shower?
I was gonna say, because I am as well. I was say I can't disagree, because I am as well. So
I've slipped in the shower, and countless amounts of times, and I really should get mad.
You have eaten shit so many times in that shower.
So my shower is a walk-in shower. It has like, you know, like the old lady metal bar on the sides. I don't use those. Those things are just has like all of like the shampoo bottles and stuff like that all over the sides of it, and also some other stuff. So if I were to try to grab them, I'm knocking everything over. So I should accept my fate and just fall.
Oh my god. That's just me as well though. Like holy shit. I knock shit over in my shower all the time and I'm just like, ugh.
Exactly! It is a sad, sad time, my guy. I'm just sitting there, freaking just crying my eyes out, just on the floor, just like, ugh. You sound like you need to invest in a bath mat. Yeah, I have one. It's just dirty, and I haven't had time to ask for it to be cleaned.
No, I get you. I get you.
Because I can't touch the chemicals because I don't know why. Because my skin's really sensitive.
Well, it's almost like you have the one thing, my brain, eczema. There we go.
Eczema, I do.
Which makes your skin very very sensitive.
Holy Christ,
to,
my
like
arm is
yeah.
dead.
I get you. I get you.
Because I've had this like weird like red spot on my arm lately.
Yeah.
Also, don't wash your feet. What?
What?
Ew.
Anyway,
That's kind of gross.
What are you saying?
I have
You
this
have
like
a
weird
red
like
spot?
red spot on my freaking
Mhm.
arm, shoulder arm.
Yeah.
And my mom even was just like, "What is that?" And I was like, "I don't know."
Right.
It makes them slippery. Yeah. But then, what are you supposed to do? Let your feet not be washed? That's disgusting. You know how much stuff built up
True.
on your feet and everything like runs down because you're like washing yourself?
Yeah.
You gotta make sure that you
Clean.
scrub your feet every single time you take a shower.
Yeah. Clean feet is
Sit down or
important.
something? I can't sit down. I ain't gonna bring some like freaking grandma
I'm a-
stool into the bathroom and sit
I'm
my
a
ass down.
I'm gonna buy your ass a fucking shower seat.
Then you slip. TC, you make no sense.
I'm gonna buy your ass a fucking shower bench. One of those little like benches that you bring in and out of the shower.
Don't you do this to me! Don't treat me like some old lady!
God, I would never. But
Uh-huh.
sounds like you need it currently,
pee.
anyways.
I'm gonna
With the
pee
current
aggressively.
shower until you can get a bath mat.
It's just because of this one conditioner I use. Is it shea butter?
No, I get you. I full on understanding.
Yeah.
Get you.
Yeah. They freaking
Oh, it's so funny though. Shea butter.
shea butter. I got the shea
Butter
butter
that
lotion.
shea.
Oh my god, so I have this new acne wash I'm trying out, right? It's not
Oh
acne
my
wash,
god.
but it's like this
yeah.
lotion.
I'll chat about it.
Oh. All right, so
The struggles.
what it tells you to do is to wash your face, you know, gently, which I do, and
Mhm.
then you put the cream on. At first, it didn't burn. Later on, now, my acne has gotten worse. What they said that was normal, but
Mhm.
they didn't mention that putting any form of other moisturizer on your face, aka lotion, burns you. Freaking 3rd-degree burns on my face.
Yeah.
And then it flared up my freaking my scaliness and all of the skin just bam.
Yeah. How has it been though after a couple of days of using it now?
Not good.
Is it well, I mean more so is it like starting to clear up, like acne wise?
Not really, no. It's just making it worse.
I see. It might be like a long-term thing, but God.
Yeah, it's still just
I
I need to go to a dermatologist and get some like freaking medicine for it.
yeah. Yeah, like actual proper like a proper
Yeah.
like
I just gotta, you know,
medication.
plan appointments.
I'm telling you, we're just gonna sit and call one day, and I'm just gonna emotional support and just gonna fucking have you call a bunch of people and make a bunch of appointments and stuff that you need to do. Cause you gotta, there's a lot of stuff you gotta call about that you gotta get done.
I know there's a lot. I just, you know, social anxiety.
No, I get you.
Because I know for a fact, talking about things with like strangers is not my thing.
No, I fully understand. It is even when you know it's like, well, it's a doctor, blah blah. It's still fucking weird to discuss it with them.
Very much.
It's like this weird like mental blockade that makes it very hard to be like, yeah, so my butt cheek, all right, it's got this scab.
You don't say. No,
It's
because
ve-
I understand. Because I know for a fact that later on I'm gonna be like, all right, so my coochie.
Yeah,
Ask questions about my coochie.
yeah. I mean,
It's like,
exactly.
is my nipple supposed to be shaped this way?
Is my nipple supposed to be shaped this way?
Yeah, you know, like those kind
Alright,
of
Doc.
questions. I know one
Alright,
day I'm gonna have to have something like that.
Doc, listen, you gotta lay it to me straight. Are my moon nipples weird or are these normal? Moon nipples. They're in the shape of a
My
crescent
moo
moon.
nipples.
You know
My
what I mean?
moo-moos. Make sure my boo-boos are okay. Get the ruler out.
Nipples. The ruler? What you trying to measure?
I don't know. It's just like
Length? Question mark?
Holy!
What you trying to measure?
We're too tired for this.
I'm gonna fucking cry.
So yeah, but yeah, what do you have planned this next weekend, my good friend?
Yeah, this week coming up, I honestly am not sure what I have coming up. I haven't thought too much lately because I've realized I think I've been feeling kind of burnt out lately. So I
No, I
haven't been
understand.
Yeah, so I haven't been planning as much. I've mostly just been doing things more sporadically. Uh I would like to stream Cyberpunk because I've got the fucking itch after we watched Edge Runners. Ooh, we could talk about Edge Runners a little bit.
Oof.
Um without spoiling stuff obviously.
Yeah.
Um but I want to play some more Cyberpunk. I have got to grab you. I have to
I've
figure a
been
day
grabbed.
for Alien. I feel like we gotta. I feel
Yeah,
like we
we gotta
gotta
plan a
do
day
that.
for Alien. I need to be there
Yeah,
so I can witness this.
yeah. I feel like we gotta do it sooner rather than later. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Hello, Ian.
Hi.
Maximum spooks. Yeah. Thank you for
Yeah.
the hat.
And I know I definitely want to do a Phasmophobia day as well.
Oh, full on phasmophobia. I
I would
understand this.
love to get Izzy
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you and do Phasmophobia stream. I feel like that would be so fun
Oh, I would love
because
it.
we are all giant chickens. The three of us do not handle like
Yeah.
Phasmophobia's atmosphere and setting well at all, and they made
Yep.
it scarier.
Yep. They made it a
Those-
whole lot more scarier. But I
those-
appreciate them for doing that. I know for a fact, I just don't like the dark in the game.
No, I get you.
The
Same.
dark and then the kind of thing. I'm just like, ah!
Yeah, you're not a fan of when you're sitting there and suddenly you just
Yeah, screw that. Screw that.
fucking. Oh my
Actually
god.
awful.
I actually got them though when they were all playing. They were all muted on Discord, and I joined call and I just went. And Izzy unmuted and said, "You fuck, you suck so bad." I felt so bad.
No,
But
no,
it
no. I would
was
have been
so
laughing.
funny.
I would have been laughing my butt off.
It was so fucking funny.
Oof.
Oh my god.
But I understand completely. I freaking love I love. I'm just an adrenaline junkie. That's all it is. Is that I love
Yeah.
getting scared, and I get scared easily. And
Yeah,
but
yeah.
afterwards, I laugh because I'm just like, oh, that was awesome.
No, I get you. I am the same way. Because as much as I hate horror and I despise it, as long as I
Yeah.
have someone there with me to play and like do horror stuff, I'm fine and I enjoy it. I just
Yeah.
can't do it alone.
No, I get you. I get you completely,
Oh
sir.
my god. But no, it's so fucking god. I have to ooh, that's something else I should do for this month. I should plan a day and redo an old stream of mine where I played Fear.
Ooh.
There's a specific moment from my old Fear playthrough. I'll have to see if I can find it and show you.
Yes,
But
please.
I had a moment where my character was about to go down a ladder, right? And as I was about to go down, I said, "Man, I swear to fucking God, if she shows up at the bottom of this ladder, I'm gonna or like as I'm like climbing down this ladder, I'm gonna piss myself." Didn't show up.
Oh.
Showed up in the middle of the fucking ladder.
Oh. Well.
A little small fucking demon child. I was like, "You motherfucker!" I was like, "You cocksuckers! You lured me into a false sense of security. I hate it."
I appreciate it.
Also, that whole time, my chat was going nuts because every time, because it's actually like a small like child, right? It's like a little demon child. Like,
Yeah.
if you Google Alma from Fear,
Yeah, no, I've seen Fear before. Don't you worry.
Yeah. Every time I fucking saw her, there is not a moment of hesitation. I just shot immediately. there was not a bone in my body that did not hesitate. Like at the very beginning, she runs through the fucking thing, right? I
Yeah.
literally, the second I saw the shadow, I shot the shadow as it ran across the hole.
Bruh! That's a kid! Like, you're just shooting at a freaking ghost freaking monster, kid!
Nowadays I know better than to shoot at ghosts. Cause what the fuck you gonna do if the ghost shoot back?
What you gonna do when they shoot back?
Yeah,
It
we
goes
just-
through the freaking wall!
I got ghost bullets. What am I supposed to do against ghost bullets? I don't want to bring that on me. I'll fist fight the ghost. I ain't gonna shoot it.
Spice the ghost, now you're going against the freaking rock.
Fucking the Undertaker. You pull up to a haunted house. She said, "Come on, go square up." Suddenly you hear. It's the fucking Undertaker as a ghost. It's like, uh oh,
No,
uh oh.
I can't. I can't. Oh, God. I can't be alright!
Damn, get yawned.
I'm gonna make you yawn, I swear to God. Ah!
Yeah, hold on. I got a meme to send you real fast.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Is
I
it that
feel
one?
the- No, I feel this meme in my soul
Oh no. I got a
because
freaking lotion on my freaking
this is
thing.
me to all my friends who are too nice to say shit to mean people.
I'm not a hater, but don't worry. I am. Bro, that's messed up.
That's me whenever anyone's fucking with you guys. It's like, nah, I'm not a hater. Don't worry, I am.
Oh my God, it was actually just when we were playing League and you were getting toxic.
The second anyone is toxic to you or Ryu or any of you guys while we're playing, I become a rabid fucking animal
You become
in chat.
toxic. You just bring out all the things. Me on the other hand, I just say cringe and move on.
I something like a switch flips. If someone's toxic to me, whatever. The second they're toxic to you guys, I'm like, damn, can't believe your mother never hugged you. It sucks that you've never touched a woman. Oh, you haven't seen the light of day in 10 days, have you?
God, you're freaking shady. I freaking, you know, I don't get that toxic. Honest, do I?
You get it when someone's insulting us as well. You have the exact same thing as me. When they're toxic to you, you don't give a shit. The second they're toxic to us, that's when you get mad. You fucking the second that Nautilus started making fun of me, I remember you went off on him.
Tell me!
You had a fucking bone to pick with that Nautilus.
Oh, you got attacked. But oh my God, full on. I swear I didn't say slur.
No, he did though.
He did.
That's why
I
he
got
got
out
banned.
of him. That's where you got banned. You see what happens is that you gotta get on their nerves just enough until they say a slur, and then you ban them.
Oh my god. One of me and Ryu's favorite thing to do when someone gets really riled up like them.
Yeah.
Do you know a surefire way to get someone banned in League? You get them riled up, right? They like, you know, they're already being toxic, right? And so you
Yeah.
just like you egg them on, you know, like you talk to them, you feed the troll, so to speak.
Yeah.
But then you hit them with the very simple phrase, chat. All right, listen, I'm gonna get real close. Hit them with the surefire phrase. Don't be racist. That's all you gotta say to them. And 90% of the time, they will say something racist.
Well,
And you have them.
I'll keep this in mind.
It is so fucking funny how often it works.
Just don't be racist. What? That's the way to do it. Death by mod. Exactly. God, I'm gonna put lotion
Yeah, go
on my
put some
face real
lotion
quick.
on.
It is so
Yeah.
dry, and every time I like yawn, it stretches my skin.
You know, I almost said my usual haha get blanked. I'm glad I held off.
No, I'll say it. Get stretched.
Well,
Hi, Mom. How are you?
it's called just reliving my college days.
Alright, I'll be back. You do it.
Okay.
What kind of acne
Yeah.
cleanser is it? It's different gel. Different gel. It says is good. Mom, let me tell you something about this. It is making my skin extra dry. Anytime I put a moisturizer on it of any kind, I feel like I get third-degree burns. I don't know if I should keep using this.
Oh no, Izzy said, "Oh Christ, different." Izzy, is this
Oh, I don't
is
think
this like a
Izzy knows
bad?
this. This is not good.
Is this a bad Izzy?
Is this a bad Izzy? You need to ultra moisturize. How does one do that? Because I've been in pain.
Hold on. So
Like, oh, okay.
if I had to take a guess, judging by that, is this one of those acne cleansers that cleanses by fucking just drying all the oil up? Izzy?
What do I do, Izzy? I'm in physical pain. Wax right here. Yeah, you wax right here, but all around my face gets extremely dry.
Build a
Like, you know, if I put
tolerance for it.
moisturizer on it of any kind and the acne thing, I just. Alright, let me read. Yeah.
Okay, so according to Izzy, you need to heavily moisturize, build a tolerance for it. She says do it 2 to 3 times a week.
Yes. No, I just read a student's paper topic proposal. Choose a historical individual who lived before the year 15th. I want to write something about the Civil War.
Oh.
It's a. I don't know what that word is, but I'll be right back.
Go moisturize, and then we'll discuss with Izzy. I want you to know, Izzy, I'm looking at that word, right? And I'm trying my best to figure it out. I'm like using all my energy to try to get it. Retinol ret paladin anti-aging. Oh, interesting. So it's a de-ager. Oh, it's like an anti-wrinkle cream. I see. So, would that be good for Ada then, in terms of like what she needs? Well, I guess at the end of the day, like Ada said, she needs to go to a dermatologist to figure out what kind of stuff she needs. Ah, okay. Works by increasing cell turnover and helps acne. I see. Okay. Ah, it's heavy duty basically. This is basically like the equivalent of like the heavy arsenal. I see. Okay. That's good. That will probably at least make Ada feel better in terms of like why it's hurting so much and burning and stuff like that. That will probably at least be a nice comfort to know that it's doing what it's hurting because it's working. Oh god. That's so funny though. Ada just accidentally bought the big guns of fucking acne creams. Yeah, like a heavy moisturizer. Okay. Are there any in particular, or like anything she should look out for in terms of moisturizers? Dang, who messaged me? Pokemon Go. Damn it. Thought I had a friend. Something with ceramides. Okay. Okay. Me writing all this down. Hiya, TC. Oh my god. CeraVe lotion probably will help. Okay. Good. I keep in mind. I almost read that as not that. You know what? Never mind. I'm not gonna say what I almost read that as. I'm too tired. I'm too tired. That's all I'll say. I'm too tired, and my brain is still like half in the stream I did last night when I was playing fucking Splatoon. Oh, that Splatoon stream. It was.
I am bad.
Yeah!
What?
I have information for you. I have been milking the source of information.
You've been milking Izzy?
Gotta say it like that.
Sorry, I'm just saying how it is, I guess.
Gotta say it like that.
Go on.
Listen, only milk people if it's consensual.
Go on. Tell me your knowledge.
So they're talking about the what you have, right? You
Yeah.
basically have gotten the fucking nuclear option of anti-acne creams.
Yeah, that makes sense. I need
Like
it.
you have like the super duper heavy duty stuff, and it's actually like something that Izzy thinks is gonna work really good for you, and you should keep using.
Okay.
She said you have to build a tolerance for it though. So she said you need to use it 2 to 3 times. Yeah, 2 to 3 times a week.
But it says to use it 1 times a week. No, not 1 times a week. I mean 1 time a day. Ignore me.
Go on.
No, it's fine. You said week. I thought you said
But yeah.
day.
No, 2 to 3
I'm using
times.
it every day, every single day.
Yeah, don't use it every single day. This is something I learned from Bella recently. Apparently, using stuff like that every day will damage your skin rather than help it. So there needs to be grace periods. There actually needs to be like time in between.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Izzy also recommended a heavy duty moisturizer as well. They said look for a moisturizer with something called ceramides in it. And I copied the word down that way so I could give it to you.
Okay.
Yeah. They said
Alright.
it's basically it's like a healing kind of lotion and
Okay, cause good. I have this one Shibuder lotion that I use for my face. And mom's to changing my my cleanser, you know what I wash my face with, to Dove instead.
Yes, that will probably be good.
Yeah, cause I use this one that exfoliates and it's
Yeah. Oh good. She says shea butter is fine.
okay, good. The beauty bar is so nice. Yeah. Cause I'll use something that exfoliates the skin and it has like these like little like particles in it.
Yeah, the it has like that like grit stuff in it to help scrape off.
Yeah.
I use very similar stuff.
Yeah, that's my face is burning right now.
Yeah.
But have I returned to skin talk?
Yeah, we're talking about
Was it about horror games? We're talking about my skin, horror skin.
Yeah. I know I got horror skin. Oh no, wait, that's horror skin.
Wow, man, we're cutting this conversation here. I don't want to learn anything else.
Well, no, because I'm a content whore, remember?
Shut up!
Don't you remember from yesterday?
Yeah, I do. I called you a content whore.
You, Bella, and Zira!
I'm super into skincare. Izzy, just please tell me everything. Honestly, I need to better my skincare so much.
Dude, same. My skin's been getting a little better here and there, but like, fuck me.
I understand.
I know the big thing for me and you is gonna be washing our face every day. I know that is like a super duper important thing for people who have like really oily skin like us
Yeah.
is you do legitimately need to give like a
Yeah,
little
I have
swash.
extremely oily, but also very dry skin when I wake up, which is a weird combination.
Well, so basically, we have skin that gets super duper oily, but the oil dries fast.
Ah, yeah.
It
You
like
probably
it.
have dry skin. I'm gonna die. My skin's so bad.
I get you, fam. Cause same.
And I know for a fact I shouldn't be like messing with my skin, like, popping pimples and stuff like that. I really shouldn't be doing that. But it's
Yeah.
every time I see a whitehead, I'm just like,
No, I get you.
and the
That's been
skin
me lately.
overcompensates by making it really oily. So you gotta moisturize. Your moisturizer barrier is
Ah.
probably damaged, which is why it's painful and sensitive right now. Wah. So like,
Ah.
do I
So
moisturize? Put like the shea butter first, then like the acne cream, or the other way around?
uh, I'm pretty sure it should be acne
The
cream
other
then
way.
the moisturizer.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, that last time I did that, I felt like I wanted to die. The hell, because it's a natural cleanser that has built-in moisturize. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh God, now that I know that, my other
Yeah.
acne washes that I actually forgot at a hotel would have
Mm.
worked so good if I
Yeah.
just now knowing that I have to just extra moisturize. How do you extra
Yeah.
moisturize? What the fuck did I just hear?
You squeeze the bottle, rub it in your hands, and slather it all over your face.
That's I just gotta coat my face in moisturizer.
Just smear it on there.
Because I know for a fact that I have to wear sunscreen when going out, so
Yeah.
I'm not even sure if
Basically,
we have sunscreen.
basically think of it like a what you would do like for like a normal little bit of moisturizer, extra. A little bit of extra.
Ah, okay. Or like that word will help. The heck is
Nice
that word?
and niacinamide. Niacin. Nice.
Niacimid.
Nice men. Nice men will
Nice
help.
men. Nice men.
I'm gonna just quickly, you know what, in the other
Yeah, because I know
DMs,
for a
I'm
fact,
gonna
like,
put all
oh,
this
I'm so
information
bad.
in the other DMs and
Oh yeah, go for it. Go for it.
yeah.
Niacinamide.
Niacinamin.
Cinnamon.
N-
Is
cinnamon.
he? Hey,
Nice
Izzy.
man. Nice man.
But freaking, I definitely will keep all of this in mind because I have such bad acne because of my Asian genes, and it makes me so sad. Ibuprofen. Ibuprofen. I know what ibuprofen is. I take that daily.
Yo, same.
Astamifone. It's just a damaged skin barrier. It's repairable. Trust me. Izzy, listen, you don't understand. I look like a beehive half of the time.
Rossia? Roscara. Mascara.
Anything that touches it, it becomes red. Yeah. It doesn't help that I have sensitive skin either. Rosacea.
Let me see. Some moisturizers with ceramide or
Bruh. Izzy. Just become like a skin god. Do your magic fingers and go scatagaskoo. You no longer have acne.
you know what I'm just imagining now? I'm just imagining little crow Izzy like on your forehead, just going with her little feet, just like massaging the oil into your head.
Yeah. My rosacea flares. I get pimples, like eruptions in my face that doesn't respond to acne. Oh, that's so secret. I understand that though, cause oh my god, I know for a fact I want my acne to be better. I want to have a clear face for once. I used to have such a baby face when I was younger. Screw you, puberty.
So
Making me look like I'm built different.
So what we've got to remember is that what you've got to remember. Definitely, both of us have to wash our face every day. Do
Yep.
a little rinse with water.
Yeah.
2 to 3 times a week. You need to be applying your acne cream. Heavy moisturizing. So Izzy, the other big question I have is, should we be moisturizing every day?
I would think so.
Yeah, I would
But
assume
I'm
so.
scared
But
that the
just
skin will get too oily, question mark.
yeah, that's what I want to ask. Like, I assume we should every day.
If your skin touches water, yes. Ah.
Okay. So basically, the idea we should do every morning is when we wake up, wash face, moisturize.
All right. Yeah. Oh, God. The motivation needs to be there. I have such bad motivation with self-care.
It's okay. I will yip at you every day until it becomes a habit.
I appreciate, because I want to look better.
I get you, cuz same.
I want to feel more confident.
I get you. We'll do it. Fist bump.
Why was such an aggressive fist bump, my guy?
I don't know. Listen.
I really recommend the Dove Beauty Bar and lotion. The blue one in the pump. My skin is so soft, so clear. Izzy, whenever I meet you, just in the future, even when you go to a con that's here, I'm going to randomly just rub my face. No, you know what? Rub my face against your face. Just cheek against cheek. Just.
I have no doubts in my mind that Izzy is probably fucking gorgeous. Like,
oh,
genuinely.
I know for a fact Izzy is gorgeous.
Yeah, like
I think I saw a picture. I don't remember, but I know for a fact Izzy is probably the most beautiful buff Amazon woman.
Beautiful buff Amazon woman.
Yeah. Oh well, Lich looks better. Lich looks great. Look at that clear complexion. Look at his bony white skin.
Look at this pasty complexion.
Yeah, but I think Izzy looks like a full-on Amazon. Freaking superwoman.
Honestly, I think the funny part is I can't disagree.
Yeah, exactly. I'll freaking look like some weird henchman next to Izzy.
Same. I'm fucking one of those big giant henchmen behind him.
Exactly. Boney old behind, boney old behind, boney old behind. Man, TC, you have an attitude. What the fuck? I'll let you know. He has hips for days.
I fucking run my ass into so much stuff. It's so bad.
Dude, I know you do, because I'll randomly hear from the freaking other side of the room.
I'll be coming back. I'll fucking slam my butt cheek on my goddamn fucking door handle, and all Ada will hear is just
Izzy could hurt me.
Probably.
Izzy could pick me up and throw me if she wanted to.
Oh my god.
I weigh nothing.
Izzy could recreate my D&D scene, one of my favorite scenes with my character Krav.
Oh no.
There's this old D&D moment, right? We had ambushed some guards. And so my character, after punching the guy's light out in one solid blow, the other guy is fucking just trying to run away from the party.
Yep.
My Goliath picks this man he just knocked out up in one hand, javelin throw pose, and just into the other guy.
Exactly.
Fucking head to head knocks them together like a fucking.
It's so good.
He tied them up and put them in a river.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. But oh my god, I forget one day I just need Izzy just to pick me up and carry me. Carry me like the baby I am. Hello, Light!
Hold on, I'm gonna send you a joke real fast.
Why are you sending me a joke? Why? I'm scared. Why? Stop. I'm scared.
No, don't worry about it.
Bro, you know for a fact I can't control it. You know for a fact I wouldn't be able to control that.
No, I know. I'm just saying, you just got you have to mentally prepare for that to slip out.
Yeah. Hello, what's going on here? Welcome to Dead Hair. It is a podcast. We discuss whatever the heck is on our minds and what is going on in the weeks. Today is spooky month, and we're talking about all the good things before I go on my trip.
Yeah, we're talking about plans coming up for the month, and it's kind of low energy, more so just insane energy right now.
Yeah, our brains are scattered.
Yeah.
We talked about skin for a while, which, God, that's going to help me in the long run. Thank you, Izzy. Thank you for talking about skin things with me.
You're beautiful is a moi.
I love your face, Izzy. Blah.
What kind of fucking assaultive kisses was that?
What do you mean?
It's like you ran up and you're like.
That's the best kiss. What's your guys'
You're
favorite
not
scary
wrong.
movie? Oh, hashtag alive.
I don't know.
If that's
I have.
dedicated as a scary movie. I just love zombie movies in general. But I also
don't
love
know.
the Conjuring franchise.
I don't know if I have a favorite scary movie.
You don't really watch scary movies alone, do you?
No, not at all.
I do. I watched the whole Conjuring series by myself.
There's one that keeps coming to mind. It's a really fucked up one. It was like psychological horror, and it was basically someone just losing their fucking mind. But like
There's a lot
in
like
the
that.
like it was like this person was losing their mind and they're like going fucking insane, and it like kept alluding to like no, this person's just crazy. They're actually just like going insane. No one else can see what's happening to them. And by the end of the movie, it does another like 360 and it goes, actually, he wasn't crazy and it was real. It's like, what do you mean?
Oh, I honestly can't do psychological horrors because I don't know, it just gets on my nerves.
No, I get you. It drives me insane.
It makes me feel gross. That's why I can't watch psychological horror. So I just watch like supernatural kind of stuff.
Yeah.
God, but I love it so much. I love horror movies so much. I would kill to just play all of the horror. Have you seen Paranormal Activity? Heck yeah. That's an old one.
Oh my god.
That's such a... It was so weird, though. I didn't enjoy it as much because it was just over the top for me.
Yeah.
Real supernatural stuff isn't like that. I know that for a fact.
Real supernatural stuff is more subtle, and when it does happen, though.
Yeah, when it does happen, it makes you freaking shake to your core.
Yup. God, that's all I can say.
No, I get you. What was a really good ghost one? Let me think.
Oh, what about that one that was in the asylum where they all like started getting picked off one by one? They were like a ghost hunting crew.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. I just haven't freaking seen. Oh God. I know what it is, and I know exactly what you're talking about. I just don't remember the name. Oh dear God, accomplished the impossible. I modded Fallout 4 and not crashed a few times
Grave
now.
Encounters?
Oh my God.
Is that
Probably?
it? Great.
I would say look it up. I love thrillers. They get me thinking so much. I understand. The Wreck, is it?
Yeah, I think that's it. Grave Encounters.
Grave Encounters.
Yeah,
Oh,
that
God.
one was so fucked
No,
up.
I get you. Oh, I love horror things so much.
Oh, I should watch Grave Encounters. We should watch that at some point.
Oh, I'm fine with that.
Because
I'm totally fine with that.
There's this specific scene where they're like ghost hunters, right? And they like start arguing. They're like, we have to find a way to get out of this fucking building. There's something here and it's coming for us.
Yep.
And they're like walking around this bathtub and it's filled with blood. And they're like, look at this. Fucking look at this. And then just a whole ass body comes up, grabs the guy and pulls him into the fucking tub.
And they all just...
They all just
I
run
love
in
stuff like that
separate
so much.
directions.
I love it so much. That's when the panic induced and they run separate directions and all of them start getting picked off and picked off and picked off.
Oh my god.
I love that kind of stuff.
It also had, in my opinion, one of the worst fuck you if you do this in a horror movie type of horror build up scares. It's when the person's facing the corner. And it's like someone,
that's some Blair Witch kind of stuff.
It's someone from the crew and they're like, "Hey, you all right?" And they're facing the fucking corner and they're like, "Hey, what's going on? Can you hear me? Hey."
Yeah.
And then the person slowly turns around and they look at them and they go, and you're like, ah!
Yeah, exactly, dude. That's a Blair Witch kind of project kind of scene when they're like facing the wall. That's I'm not sure if that was where it originated from, but
No,
to me,
it was
it's
the
weird.
original. Yeah.
Yeah.
It comes from the original Blair Witch and stuff like that. And it was popularized.
I hated the Blair Witch. I hated that movie.
Yeah.
It was so stupid.
Yeah.
So stupid. Constant camera in her face. You're just seeing up her nose all snotty and gross. I'm just like,
Dude,
You could just
I
be doing anything better.
I wish found footage like horror movies were like better.
I wish they were better.
Cause like found footage can be so good.
They can. I know that for a fact. Oh my god. Oh, there was a really, really good one. I just gotta remember it.
Yeah, I get you.
Have you seen the one Sinister? Yeah! I love Sinister.
Sinister was so bad.
Sinister was creepy.
It was creepy,
and
but
good.
no. Wait, I'm thinking of a different one. I'm thinking of the one where it was like the guy who like got haunted way in the past. I'm thinking of a different one.
Yeah, it's different. We're talking about the ones like
Yeah, I'm
that.
I'm thinking of Insidious. Insidious is
Yeah.
so
Oh,
bad.
Insidious. Oh, I love the Insidious series so much. I wanted to binge watch the whole series, but guess what? No,
What?
Netflix.
Damn, that's fucked up.
I wanted to binge. I love the Insidious series.
I know what my favorite horror movie is.
I watched Autopsy of Jane Doe. That was screwed.
What is that?
Oh.
The Autopsy of Jane Doe.
Watching it.
Oh no.
We're watching it together, my guy. We're watching it
Okay.
together, my guy. That
Okay.
was
I'll
so
do it.
creepy and good. I've
I'll
seen
do it.
Brightburn. That messed me up real good.
Do you know what my favorite horror movie was? I remember now.
What?
Fucking Cabin in the Woods.
That! Oh my god. Okay, yeah. That one I understand. Oh god, that movie was so gory.
It was so funny, but it like did scary and shit like that, right?
Yeah,
it was
no, I get that.
so fucking
I watched
good.
that whole thing. I was just sitting just like on the freaking tip of my seat.
I think my favorite moment from that movie was me and my friends were watching it together, and when the one guy drives the bike and hits the wall, my friend screamed, "Oh no!"
I see.
It was so fucking fun. The best part is the second we realized what kind of movie it was, we paused it and we started taking bets on who we thought was going to be like the people at the end.
Yep. Full. I understand that.
Oh
I will
my
do that all the
God.
time. I remember being messed up by arachnophobia. Not a chance. Never watch it. It's so creepy, but so good. Yeah, I love the freaking Autopsy of Jane Doe. It's so good. When I watched Cabin in the Woods, I thought it was a more horror than gore, so it was odd to watch. Yeah, it was more gore than horror. But I love that kind of. I love gore. I'm not gonna lie. I really like gore, like in movies and stuff like that.
When it's done right, I love
When it's
it.
done right, but when it's like over the top too much,
Yeah,
that's when I'm like,
when it becomes Saw, I
Yep.
think it's like
yeah. When
Saw,
it becomes
Saw, I think
Saw is a
went
great
too
series,
far.
but
Yeah,
it's
Saw like took it like too far. It's just gore porn at this point.
gore, more gore than horror be gore. My brain hurt reading that. Whew.
Gore.
Saw movies are my fave. Yeah, I love like the Saw like idea.
I love Saw.
I know. I grew up watching them as well, which oof, that's something else. But freaking
Yeah.
full on,
Oh,
it was a bit too gory at times.
Yeah, do you know another good like horror franchise
What?
that I loved watching, but I had to stop because it fucked with me too much?
What?
Fucking Final Destination.
That thing was so over the top, and it scared me because they showed like regular life things, and I think that's what scared me up the most.
I think what got the driving behind
Driving behind
things
the
with,
stupid
like-
wood things.
or dude, I was so paranoid going to like the gym and stuff like that for a while after because of the scene with the guy that gets his head crushed. Fuck that! Fuck that!
No, you would. No, I fear swimming in a pool. Sorry, I don't want my tongue sucked out of my butthole.
Oh, it's so bad.
It is awful.
Oh, my
we are all
God.
traumatized because of that movie. We are
Final Destination
so
is
bad.
fucked up,
But I
man.
love it so much.
There's something so cool about the concept of this guy predicted their death and saved their lives. And now death is like, fuck you, I'm getting my pay.
Yup.
And it's like, after them, and this guy continues to try to be like, yo, listen, we have to not do X, Y, and Z. You're gonna fucking die from it. And the person be like, you're crazy. And die from it.
Freaking exactly. So I love dumb people in movies because you just sit there and just laugh and watch.
Yeah, you're like, no.
To me, it's the most funniest thing. But God, I love zombie movies though. Favorite zombie movies? Hashtag Alive, World War Z. There's this one.
Have you ever played World War Z? By the way, they have a game
I
of
want
it.
To.
Yo, if
I
you
want
ever
to play
get
it
it,
so bad. I love stacking zombies. I love that aspect.
if you ever get it, I own it, and I will 100% play that with you.
Yes. Day After
But,
Tomorrow. Oh, I've seen that. It's not my favorite, but it's up there.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
God, fucking but yeah, it's so good. But yeah, I love and hate horror. I cannot do it alone, but I love horror concepts. I'm working on a horror concept thing.
Yeah. I understand. Like full on. All right. So, if you guys don't know what Train to Busan is, you're gonna be hurt. You're gonna be hurt watching that. You're gonna be sobbing your eyes out.
Train to Busan. My heart.
Freaking Train to Busan. You got freaking World War Z. You got hashtag Alive. I loved the girl with all the gifts.
Yup.
The girl with all the gifts. That was such a good take on it. And that made me so happy.
Oh my god.
It made me so happy.
Fucking. Oh.
But of course, we can't forget the best one, freaking Shaun of the Dead. Shaun of the Dead, yeah!
Shaun of the Dead is so fucking funny. I love joke horror movies as well.
Joke horror movies are great.
Like Scary Movie.
Oh my god, I love Scary Movie.
Weather!
Yeah. There's this one Japanese zombie movie. It's like, I think it was I Am Hero. Mm-hmm. But I love that one as well because that was super good. You might like I've seen Evil Dead. Don't get me wrong. I've seen that. That was something else.
But oh my god.
I Am Hero. Yeah, I Am Hero. I freaking love that movie so much.
I still think about, in terms of Shaun of the Dead, one moment from that movie I still think about is when the fucking zombies in the backseat of the car just to the music. And they're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, actually, yeah. But oh my god. Also, another good zombie movie. So I'm actually not sure if you guys would watch that kind of old stuff. So there is an old zombie movie, right?
Mm.
I'm not sure how to really describe it, actually.
I like how. Go on.
So it was made in 2004. It's called Dawn of the Dead.
Oh, Dawn of the Dead. It's literally what Shaun of the Dead is based on.
Pretty much. Warm Bodies, Sorry, not my thing. I don't like Warm Bodies. That was stupid. I think it's stupid. And listen, I love romance. I really love romance. But the way they did it for me was a bit awkward and cringy and not my kind of thing. Don't get me wrong. Zombies, I've always had the fascination with the zombie falling in love with a human, but I don't like the way they did it.
No, I get you.
For the D&D Halloween event, Ghostface is getting the "What's Up" face for the Scary Movie.
Let's fucking go.
I hope.
Amazing.
That's so cool. Oh no, you're gonna be spending more money, Ashley.
Also, I need to send you a picture. I googled I Am Hero, and I got a page from the manga.
Yeah.
Your
makeup done a dead old. To me, it's old. Listen, I don't remember anything 2 years ago. I shall do it. Hereditary. I couldn't watch it. I couldn't finish watching it because I was gone. Yes, No, Ashley.
I need you to show that to chat. That's what I saw in the top images when I googled I Am Hero.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, that is the image. Let me just show this to chat. There it is. There it is.
Why the fuck is that me in a zombie apocalypse?
Why is it like cut off like that?
I don't know, but fucking it like shrunk on you. You're like a capture thing.
Why is it shrunk?
Oh my fucking god, that's so fucking funny.
This is the picture that Lich has found of I Am Hero. I'll send you what it actually is, my guy.
No. I found the movie. The movie is based off of a manga.
Yeah, but this is the image.
That's a fucking chat. That's a page for one of the chapters.
Yeah. It's a bit of a weird one, but it's good. Plan 9 from Outer Space is pretty scary. Scary good. Oh, God, that doesn't sound like my cup of tea. I don't know if it's technically scary, but Prey is Prey.
Prey is super.
I watched that. I watched
Prey has
Prey.
a lot of. Oh, I haven't played it yet, dude. You know what we should do this month? We should like just get together, play a bunch of fucking horror games here and there.
I would kill for that. I love playing like free, like online, also horror games as well off of that one website I go to. I love horror games. Horror is my baby. That's why I'm a
so
horror
long
VTuber.
as I have friends with me, I can play horror games. Man,
I understand.
It was wild for me to realize recently that I'm a horror VTuber technically.
Yeah, as well as me, but I don't exactly look horror. I mean, look at me. Look at my pudge.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I'm just like, wait, I'm a horror VTuber?
Yeah, I'm supposed to be like a horror VTuber. No, I'm talking about the Predator show. Yeah, I know what Prey is. I watched it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, so it starts off in this like tribal kind of group. That is what you're talking about. That's Prey.
Yeah. I was sorry, Ashley. I went off on a tangent because Prey reminded me of the game as well.
Yeah. But oh my god, I love scary movies make me bust a nut.
I get you. You know, technically, Ghostbusters is a horror movie.
Is Ghostbusters?
Which is funny to me. Like people like Ghostbusters is technically categorized.
Whoever gets scared by
under
Ghostbusters,
horror.
you are sheltered.
Alright.
Ghostbusters does not scare me. You shut your fucking mouth.
It's fine. No, it's fine. Yeah,
No. Wait! Like, you got scared by Ghostbusters?
When I was young!
Okay, when you're young, I get that. Okay, that makes it better.
The scene where Ray turns around and fucking Slimer's just sprinting at him, it actually scared me when I was younger.
Oh my god. Oh, well, I understand that. The game praise good. Yeah. Have you seen Tremors?
Ooh, Tremors.
Let's
really
talk
good.
about that.
Tremors is super duper good.
Alright, I love Tremors more than the world itself.
Yup, I get you.
I love that movie so much. It was so weird. I loved it. Oh my god. I freaking loved that kind of like, how would you even describe it?
Don't
kind of
do
like,
X kind of movie.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, X draws in the monster. Don't fucking do it. Like Bird Box, where it's like,
yep.
Don't
I hate
make
Bird
that
Box.
sound. Yeah, it's like, if you fucking talk, they are going to find you if you make any sounds whatsoever.
Yep,
and it's like,
exactly.
It's like, don't look at them.
Yep.
It's like, what do you mean don't look at them? How do I not look?
Yep. One of my good friends feels very strongly for Kevin Bacon. I don't even know who that is.
That's an actor.
Then I don't care about them. I'm just saying it straight up like that. I don't know who they are. I don't care about them.
But God help me. I fucking,
Exactly. I don't care about the main character in Tremors. I never cared
fucking-
about him.
A Quiet Place gave me anxiety.
Same.
Fury.
I want to watch the
Same.
new Hellraiser. Ooh, there's a new one?
I cannot do Hellraiser.
Hold
I don't know what it is about that movie, but like that's one of the few horror movies that even with people I just like for some reason cannot watch.
I hope so. I hope so. I love. Oh, I hate him, but I love him. That's man, leave me alone. I just came here to the party for the drugs. Pinhead is a female now. That ain't making me feel any more different than what I feel about them.
Hold on, female Pinhead.
Yeah, and on Hulu, God, I don't have any more.
Oh!
Pinhead, yeah! Freaking Pincushion Man from freaking DB.
Hold on.
No, that makes me worried. Hey, what do you mean hold on? I ain't holding on to nothing.
No, your opinion of Pinhead might change.
Ooh.
Your opinion of Pinhead might change. Uh-oh, I might have to watch the new Hellraiser. Uh-oh.
I'm gonna cover up the top head. Yeah, that's better.
Yeah?
Yeah. Just cover up the face and like the whole head and we're good.
Fucking God. Huh.
Oh no, I don't need to be down bad for any more freaking bad characters. I'm gonna just send you my Netflix and Hulu accounts later. No, fam! I got Netflix and like freaking VR chat. They got the good stuff.
Yeah.
VR chat got the good stuff.
We should do like a horror movie community night.
Horror movie community night sounds great.
Yeah, let people come hang out with us in VR chat while we watch horror movies.
But anyone who talks about the freaking movie, I will snipe you.
Yeah, so be aware, chat, when we do these community nights and stuff like that, if we're hanging out watching stuff, if you're too loud and you're talking over stuff that we want to watch, we will just mute you or kick you from the room.
Yeah, whether you're a friend or not, get out.
Yeah.
If we're gonna be talking, go somewhere else.
We literally when we watched Cyberpunk Edge Runners, Knight walked into the Discord call while we were watching it, and before he got a word out, I went, Knight, hey, we're watching Edge Runners right now. This is our first time watching it. If you fucking speak at all during important scenes in this show, I'm actually gonna kick you from the server.
Exactly! You're gonna fucking super mute him! Oh my god.
Yeah, that's what I said. I told him I was gonna server mute him for the week, and he just went. He went, whoa, okay, and was just quiet and like well behaved for the duration of the show.
I know if I said anything like that, he would have listened to me. He doesn't listen to me.
Knight basically walked in. I was like, hey, Knight, capiche? And he went, okay.
God, I love Knight. Knight is such an idiot, and I love him with all my heart.
Yep, he is.
If that man got sick, I'd take care of them and make sure that they drink the bad-tasting medicine to feel better.
Yep. I would powerbomb him.
Yeah.
As long as he's okay, you know.
I've known Knight for a whole year now.
God.
He's been dealing with me for a whole year now.
Oh my god, you know. Holy shit, that just made me realize. I think that means I'm getting close to knowing you for a year as well now.
Let's go!
That's actually insane to realize.
Oh god. I think that's insane, actually.
Yeah, I think what's so funny to me about that is like it feels like I've known you for so much longer.
Yeah.
To realize it's only been like about a year.
I get you completely because we're just twins. That's it.
Yeah. Clone gang.
We're the clone gang.
Clone gang.
God, I freaking. Oh, Jesus Christ. Horror movies make me so happy.
I get you. Oh, horror is so good.
It really is.
Dude, I am excited since you now have Fallout 76 and an external hard drive.
Yeah.
To actually be able to download it. I have to reinstall Fallout 76, but we should play that because they tend to have horror events and stuff like that.
Oh, heck yeah. I love horror events.
Yeah, they have like little spooky themed stuff. Sometimes one year there's one that's called Mothership Zeta. And it's like alien horror themed, but like old school, have you ever seen War on Mars?
Yes.
Like with the
Oh my god, if they have those or some kind of those, I will just I
they
will actually lose it.
they look like a mix of that plus they look like a mix of that plus like the stereotypical like gray alien guys with the big heads and like
Yeah,
solid colored eyes. It's like a
yep.
mix of those two, and it's so fucking funny. I love Fallout. It's aliens.
Oh my god, I understand. I used to play Fallout 76, bruh. I freaking love that stuff. I remember playing Fallout a lot. I just stopped because I got bored.
Yeah, I get you. Fallout, I would say Fallout is really, really fun. So long as, like, once you figure out an idea of what your character is, like, making a character and, like an OC for Fallout as you play, I think is the best way to play Fallout.
Yeah. You just see some of the mods that have come out. Jesus.
Oh, there's a lot of porn mods.
Of course there is. Winners or not.
Yeah.
I'm
Also,
sure
there
in
you
every
go.
single game there's a porn mod.
That's a Fallout alien.
The Fallout 4 has just recently started delving down actually hype. Ooh.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
like
Face
Sky.
and
You know
bodies,
how like
aka
Sky.
titties.
Yeah, like you know how like Skyrim has the fucking like,
Skyrim has
body mods.
insane things. Skyrim's been around
Yeah.
longer than Fallout.
Well, yeah, but that's what I mean. Like Fallout 4 is starting to enter Skyrim's like later years where they're like getting just, hey, we've completely overhauled how the game looks and everything is prettier now. Thumbs up.
Skyrim Special Edition hasn't. Yeah. Skyrim came out on GOG the other day.
Yeah.
I gotta remember. I gotta put that quote in. What is that? What?
Yeah.
I actually don't remember what it was.
It's literally just GOG.com. It stands for Good Old Games.
Sign in.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of fucking Fallout, I think it's super duper cool.
Oh no.
Apparently Fallout 76, their newest DLC that they released is for the Pit, which is Pittsburgh, aka Pennsylvania, which is literally right next door. The Pit in Fallout's universe is basically this huge fucking industrial complex of factories and industry and metalworking and all that kind of shit, and it's filled with mutants and like mutated people and stuff like that.
I don't like that. Also, I gotta get that code back. 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 I gotta get that code back.
Get that code. Get that code.
Let me see
Code that get. But yeah, it's like super duper like heavy industrial themed like Apocalypse, where it's like all like metal and bars and like creepy shit all over, like the ruins of like a heavily populated city kind of shit. It's like ooh.
Yeah, bruh, I don't know where you put the code.
Hold on, I get it.
It's over the freaking bear thing. Ew.
What do you mean?
There's no way I'd get Skyrim again. Do you already have the Steam version?
I
don't know what that means.
I don't know.
Wonderland. Oh yeah, how do I put the code in?
There should just be a button on there that's like redeem code.
To redeem a code. Copy, paste, continue.
There you go.
Middle Earth, Shadow of War. Game. Psychotic bit. Why is there just Elden Scrolls here? Why do they got Elden Scrolls?
Elden Scrolls?
The Elder Scrolls, my bad.
Oh, I was like, what the fuck is Elven Scroll?
I got the Elder Scrolls Arena, freaking the Elder Scrolls, freaking 2 Daggerfall, Elder Scrolls, freaking.
Oh,
I don't even know the Oblivion Game of the Year edition.
I gave you Oblivion, remember?
What are the other ones?
That was the I would say Oblivion. I think that came with the Oblivion one, but I remember I gave you a code because I was like, hey, Well, because you're like, hey, I remember a long time ago, I was like, I want to try Oblivion one point. And I was like, here, try it. I have a code for it.
You
Take
know
it.
how many freaking issues I'm gonna be causing?
All of them, and I can't wait to hear about it.
Ada playing Oblivion would be hilarious. I know for a fact I'll probably stream it if my computer can take it.
Oh, Oblivion's a super duper old game. Your computer should be fine.
Okay, I remember when Lich used to stream Oblivion. Wow.
I gotta play that again at some point, but I have other games I want to play right now. There's lots of stuff I wanna get through this month.
I understand, and I will freaking help you with that, sir. I'll remind you. I'll grab you by your balls.
What the fuck? My balls!
Listen, I grab people by the balls because I'm short.
I can't believe you're Nico Robin from One Piece.
Don't worry about it.
You remember that scene with Frankie?
Yeah, I sure did.
That poor man.
That man went through something there.
That fucking whole scene is so funny to me because the fucking all the characters. Hey, away from Alice.
Alice, that's my big six. Help me, Alice is forcing me here. Man, I can't do anything about that. I'm so sorry.
No, but that whole fucking scene where he's just getting grabbed by the balls and the fucking characters are literally like, Stop! Stop! You're gonna rip them off!
Exactly! Welcome in, Raiders! My name is Ada
Hello,
Bunny, currently
Raiders.
doing a Dead Hair episode 11. Today is the spooky month. We've been discussing a few things.
Yeah!
Hello, welcome in!
Yeah! Howdy, Raiders. We're currently discussing horror earlier. We were talking about upcoming stuff for the month.
I'm leaving.
Yeah, and we've been you know, just discussing all the goods and things of that nature.
Yeah!
I was briefly talking about some upcoming streams and stuff like that I got planned. We were talking about next week's special guest, aka the amazing Izzy.
Izzy! I love you, Izzy.
We talked about skincare for a little bit.
Because I need it.
Yeah, same. Genuinely, though.
Yeah.
I have to really get my skin under control. Honestly, do you know the big reason I want to get my skin under control?
Why?
So it stops fucking flaking on my glasses.
I understand, because same. You know what? Since we're talking about Fallout 4 characters, I'm gonna post what my guy looks like. Go for it, my guy.
Yeah, live your life.
Banana
Your balls, what? Listen.
I normally grab
Not
Lich by
my
the balls and
balls.
drag him to do things.
Yeah. But I in that instance, I wasn't talking about my balls. I was talking about Frankie's balls from One Piece.
My hair is soft. Ashley, I'm going to flip your hair. I hope you know.
Frankie gets violated. Frankie gets fucking violated in One Piece.
Yup, full on.
Like, that is how they convince him to join the crew. Nico Robin grows arms out of his legs and grabs him by his balls.
Yep.
And fucking squeezes them and pulls them until he submits.
Yep.
That is actually the scene from fucking One Piece. I shit you not.
I inspired to be that. There's too many channels. My Discord actually doesn't have that too many channels. You'd be surprised about some other freaking Discords I've been in.
Looks at my Discord. Yeah.
Yours isn't that bad either. Don't mess with my hair, please. I try so damn hard to make it stay down. But I want to go fluffy, just once, please, baby.
I've heard too much about One Piece lately. I fucking love One Piece.
I love One Piece.
One Piece is legitimately my favorite anime of all time. Well, no, second. It is technically second, but One Piece is one of my favorite animes of all time. The first being Trigun, but I love One Piece so much.
Can we get much higher? So high.
Oh.
I hate it. But God, I understand. I know for a fact that my favorite animes are definitely going to be now Boku no
Cyberpunk
Hero.
up there.
Yeah, freaking Cyberpunk, and then it would be Edge Runners. I know there's another one. I just gotta remember what it is.
Yep. I get you. Oh my God, Edge Runners is so good.
Yeah, I know what it is. It's freaking Spy X Family.
Oh, Spike's family, it makes me so happy.
Same, I'm waiting. Hey, yo! Kasori with that freaking 4 months. Let's go.
Hey, yo, it's the wonderful Kasori.
Yeah! Posted screenshots. Enjoy the game. I'm bright too high. Jesus Christ.
Yep. But
But
God.
God, I
it's
freaking.
just-
Oh, I love anime.
I get you.
Anime makes
I
me
get
so
you.
happy.
I full on understand.
Yeah! God. Oh, I gotta yawn.
Oh, the big yawn.
Oh, so tired.
I
I'm at work, so I just
understand.
popped by really quick. Have fun, everybody. Have fun, Kasori, at work. Thank you so much for stopping by.
You have a wonderful day at work, Kasori. Because
You freaking, you
deserve
bop
it.
and you fop.
Yeah. God. I understand though. I'm still super duper
Yeah, I'm
tired.
so tired. This morning was
Yeah.
so stressful. And I
You had a
still
very
will have to look into my bank stuff and figure out how to
Yeah.
deposit my money.
You got the bank stuff to figure out, and you've also got a lot of like little things you have to do today as well to finish up.
Yep. Yep.
Oh,
I know
but
for a
yeah.
fact I have no more clothes to wash.
Yep, that's good.
I gotta plan my outfit for tomorrow.
Mm-mm-mm.
Because of my mom, I might actually have to just wear my jeans.
Why? What happened?
Pretty much the overalls that I have are booty short kind of stuff,
Yeah.
and she doesn't like that because I'm surrounded by boys when I go there.
Right.
That is the issue.
I see.
That is the only issue.
I was say, but you literally bought those for the trip and stuff like that. It'd be such a waste to not wear them.
Yeah, I don't know anymore. But I'll either have to wear. Also, it just makes me look like I have no butt when I wear them.
Yeah.
Yep. And freaking, so I'll probably have to wear my jeans, my shirt.
Mm-mm.
I wish I could wear my skirt.
Yeah,
I'll
get
have to
you.
see.
Sneak them in. That's true. You could.
I could. Honestly, I could change the car and just tell Rabbit to not look, keep your eyes on the road.
Yeah. Yeah.
I honestly could. Because I want to wear my freaking white, like, heart tight, my
Yeah,
and
you
my
had
cute
a
white
whole.
shirt.
You literally spent money on a whole ass outfit for it. What the fuck?
Bruh,
like, why?
I spent money
It would be such a waste not
to
to
look
fucking
good
wear.
in front of people. I'm so
Yeah.
upset.
It would be such a fucking waste to not
Bruh,
wear
exactly,
the outfit.
I freaking, oh my god, I need to like discuss with her about this because I want to look like I struggle to find sneakers of any kind, and it made me so upset because it was just such short notice because we've got to look for sneakers at Walmart, but at Walmart we were just suffering and we just wanted to go home.
No, I get you. Honestly, I feel like if you make it just a trip to get sneakers, it probably won't be too bad.
Yep. I might when we're at the mall. I might actually try to look for sneakers. Ooh,
Yeah.
Oh, or some like nice. I want
No.
boots, like flats. I like flats because they're easy to slip on and then go on with the day.
Yeah.
Why are you against the wall?
You need to.
Yeah, I'm hungry. Okay, I love you, Mom.
You need to find yourself some like tennis shoes.
Yeah,
Some-
some like God.
yeah.
Finding shoes though that look nice on me is difficult.
No, I think they will look amazing on you. But I will say it. I grabbed the rabbit. I will say, being able to look at them in person is a lot better than looking online. Because being able to try them on is a lot better than looking at a picture online and being like, how would that look on my foot? How would that look on me?
Yeah, because I want Vans. I think Vans are so cute.
Yeah.
I might get.
In terms of
shoes.
In terms of tennis shoes, though, I would not recommend Vans.
I know. Oh God, I just want to dress cutely. I
Yeah,
want to
and
dress nice.
And I think you should. You have every right to.
Because
No, I get you. I get you.
I wanna very, very. I'm feeling like I'm Christian.
I feel like I'm Christian.
I feel like I'm in a Christian family.
That's so
No skin
funny.
allowed.
No skin allowed. But
No
yeah,
skin
I would
allowed.
say I would definitely say discuss it with your mama. Is she
Yeah,
still
I'm
like
gonna make
hard?
2 outfits. One that's
Yeah,
like more of what I want to wear, and the other that is more on the chiller side.
yeah. I would say if she still hardlines you, do what Shiri says. You know, put it in the bag, sneak it
Yep.
with you.
Yep. Full
Uh,
on.
change on the way there. Um, but yeah, I would say, uh, God, because I'm sorry, I just can't get over how much of a waste of money that would be. 'Cause,
I
like,
know.
when
I
else would
know.
you wear this stuff aside
No,
from
I
going out?
understand. I understand.
Uh,
Because I know for a fact, I lost my train of thought.
no, I get you. I think I understand where you were gonna go with it. So
I lost my train of thought.
you said because I know for a fact when we were talking about the waste of money. I imagine you were gonna say something along the lines of you know for a fact that it would irk you if you just had to put those clothes away and never wear them or get a
Yeah,
chance to wear them.
yeah, for all the things that we went through.
Yeah.
All the things that we went through for that. But
Hmm.
yeah, I'm gonna make like 2 to 3 outfits, lay them on my bed, think
Yeah,
about it,
and
and just be
think
like, yo. Because the one skirt I have actually, the one pleated skirt actually has like shorts connected to
yeah.
it.
Yeah, I remember you showed me those. I
Yeah,
would say
because they full
you
on just raised it and look, what?
yeah, you fucking literally flashed at the con. You're like, "See, look, it's got a shorts." You're like,
Yeah,
fucking so
I did.
fucking dumb.
Guys, so imagine like a white pleated skirt, like cute little white pleated skirt, looking at me, look at me with a freaking with a smile, like, hey, don't worry about it, like me sitting and like the way I sit and everything, because look, flat freaking lifts up the skirt, show it,
Like
and
they're
then
all
like freaking
fucking
wiggle.
yeah, like they're a fucking Scotsman fucking making fun of someone.
And then you just see like shorts under it, but it's like a flashbang of just both
Yeah.
shock and then after it's just like, oh, okay.
Flashbang going out.
Yeah, that's what I did because I
Oh my
cannot help myself.
god. Yeah, you're a little gremlin. You can't
I'm
help
a
it.
little gremlin. I also did not think at the time.
No, but that's okay.
Yep, yep. And also, I have this issue now is that I've grown up
Mhm.
with 2 brothers,
Yeah.
so I'm not exactly the most girliest. I don't have like
No.
that sort of control some girls have. You know what I mean?
I full on understand. But that's okay though.
Yep, yep. So I'm kind of built. Okay, it says it with the way I'm sitting
Mhm.
currently.
Yeah. I mean literally look at your PNG as well.
I'm sitting just like my PNG. I hope you know.
Oh no,
I
I'm
just
well
realized
aware.
that. I just recently invested on a pleated skirt. Didn't realize it looks so short and it doesn't have shorts.
I almost said something. I had to pull myself back.
Uh-huh.
Whew.
Uh-huh.
Damn, that's gonna look good on you, Sherry. That's all I'm gonna say.
Sherry, you probably look beautiful.
That's all I'm gonna say. Damn, that's gonna look good on you, Sherry.
But God, I would love to just dress up with whatever I
Yeah.
have. Because I've never had like the chance to like do that kind of stuff because, you know, money.
No, I full on understand.
Yeah.
It really is like that. I mean, even I'm like that as well. I have not ever had the opportunity to like get clothes for myself that I like. I've always had to just deal with, well, we don't have a whole lot of money, so I've got to just kind of deal with what I can afford.
Yep. Yep, I get you. I get you. I
Yeah.
get you completely. Stop. We telling the truth, Sherry. I'm just saying.
Yeah, Sherry, you are gorgeous.
Yeah,
Beyond
because I know
belief.
for a fact. Oh, I think I know what I was gonna say. Me and Ashley are gonna look so different.
Oh, probably.
I'm going to look like this freaking half Asian little kid, and he's just gonna look like this freaking Texan freaking adult. It's gonna be so bad. People are gonna think that he's my
God.
dad.
God, that's so funny. Or like when we were joking that people were probably gonna think you were I was your uncle or something while we were at the fucking con.
Yep. To give you an idea, yep, explain it. I'm actually
Uh
gonna look at what my clothes are right now. I'm gonna look back. Move things off my bed. them out.
Mm-hmm.
I fell face first into the wall.
How do you do this to yourself?
I'm built different.
You know what? I feel that same. Gray polo, brown belt with a custom belt buckle, jeans and boots. Yeah, I would say I fully understand. It's funny, Ashley, but I had the same experience when I was at the con with Ada because I was in mostly solid black, big boots, pants, and like thick like jeans, shorts, and like belt, like like belts and stuff like that. And here is Ada walking alongside me in these bright colored, very like high, loud outfit and stuff like that.
A child.
It was so fucking funny.
I just looked like a straight up child.
Yeah, God, is so funny. But that is always my fucking experience. So when I go out anywhere with friends, is I have just this dark goth like biker look to me, and usually most of my friends wear like like brighter clothes and stuff like that, and so I just look like I'm like next to them.
You look monstrous, my guy.
That sounds adorable. Oh, Ada was absolutely adorable while at the con. It was so funny.
She
got her bunny cordy. Yeah.
And then I got my school outfit.
Yeah.
I think I look great in that. Oh, I wish I could. Hold on. I wonder if I still have the picture. I'm gonna edit it so you guys can actually see though.
Hold on. I think I still have it as well.
Yeah, give it to me so I can edit it so I can crop out the face so you guys can see me.
Yeah. Let me see.
Because I need to show the outfit. It's so nice.
Which picture of it did you want to send? Because there's
the one where I was sitting like back and like throwing a peace sign with my legs crossed. Yeah, it shows off my thighs. But it'll fit the dad aspect because me and you were like 6 and she's like, I'm not 5'3", please, please. Boost my ego just a little bit.
Schmo. There you go.
Oh god, there it is. Alright, let me freaking grab this. But full on, guys, I was so nice looking at that time.
Yeah, you looked lovely.
Alright, let me grab an Ada image.
Just fucking stick an Ada face on top of it.
Exactly.
I get you.
Alright, shrink.
Yeah. Oh no, what image are you sticking? Which one are you sticking on it? What are you doing? I'm concerned.
This is about to be an immersion break, guys.
An immersion break? Is it an immersion break? You're about the same size.
Well, you listen here, buddy friend.
Alright. Puts hands on my hips. Go on. The cat ears are on. I'm
Alright,
listening.
I'll send it to you first. Okay, here's your booster. You cute. Yeah, that's kind of grody. All right, so guys, this is what the outfit I bought. Oh well, not that I bought, but my Ashley, you're a lifesaver. Thank you. I hate you, but I love you so much.
This is what Ashley bought for you.
Yeah, this is what I wore. This is me.
The fucking face you pasted onto it. I'm gonna fucking sob.
This is what I was.
Oh my god, it's so fucking funny. That reminds me.
It was so nice.
That reminds me. I still need to send Izzy the con photos at some point.
Exactly.
We gotta go through, show Izzy some of the con photos.
I'm fine with also with Izzy seeing my face.
Yeah, I get you.
But yeah, It is beautiful. No, you. But yeah, I was so happy with this outfit, and I was so happy with how my legs looked.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not sure what that dent is. Don't worry about that.
That's muscle. That is.
I have
That's
muscle in my leg. That's built different. The
Yes.
thighs, yeah.
You have big thighs, like big, like ham thighs. I've told you this before.
Yeah. But yeah, I was so happy with this. It made me so happy to be able to dress up like that.
Yeah, I would say.
And my other
It was-
outfit. Do you think you have my other outfit?
Which one?
With my bunny hoodie and stuff.
Maybe. Let me see.
I'm just a
Let me look.
loser. Shouldn't be with ya. Guess I'm a quitter while your brother drinking. I'm used to thinking about where I should have been. I've been lonely. La la la. La la la. Lonely. I'm a lonely bitch. La la la.
Oh, there's the
La, la,
one.
la,
I just thought of one.
Thank you for sending me that, but yes.
The one of you with the Ito cosplayer.
Oh, yes. Give me the Ito cosplayer, please.
Let me see if I could find that.
I'm just in the sad club trying to get a back rub. But God, the con was so much fun. That was probably the most fun I've had in like years.
It was super duper fun.
It was. But God, I'm built different.
Nah, I get you, cause
I know
same.
what, yep. I'm just a loser. Shouldn't be with ya. Guess I'm a quitter while your brother drinking.
Yeah.
But God, I know for a fact that once I get all my outfits good,
Mm-hmm.
we'll be bopping.
Yeah, it's gonna be great.
I'm excited either way.
Oh, it doesn't have enough of an outfit in it though.
Oh, remember that one where you took with me with my wings?
Oh my God, I have to look for that one.
Yeah.
'Cause this is
So
the one with you with the Ito cosplayer.
God, he would buff his balls.
Yup. Alright, let me see
I
if
just
can
stared
find
at his
this one.
nips.
Yeah, that's fair. Let me see if we can find
His
it on my phone.
hands. I love his hands.
Yeah.
I love his hands. But God, I found the cutest freaking bunny sweater and these pair of wings. That freaking oh, my baby girl cosplayer. Oh my God. I love her so much.
Yeah, I say. I was super duper happy to buy you the hoodie and wings as well. It looks so cute on you.
God, and then we met the baby.
Yeah.
She was everything. I was so nervous to meet her.
Oh yeah, when you met Yaya Han.
When I met Yaya Han, I felt myself cry inside. Her
Yep.
titties are even bigger than I imagined.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, my knuckles.
There's the outfit.
Yeah! I look so stupid!
No, you look adorable.
I look stupid!
You look cute. Get got, dabs.
I will pee on you.
Alright,
Whoa! Alright, let me freaking...
God.
I'll show you guys, this will be the last outfit that I wore at all at the con.
Yeah. I mean, that was mostly the outfit.
Oh,
you
no,
wore
it's
the
too
most at the
powerful.
con.
Let's
Try.
set it up. I'm gonna shrink it just a little bit.
Yeah, shrink it down.
But God, it was so much fun.
Oh, that con was so good. I can't wait for next year, because next year we have
We
so
dragged
far
Izzy.
convinced. Yeah, we have so far convinced Izzy to come next year.
Yeah!
I'm gonna fucking cry. Do it. That's perfect.
Am I beautiful?
Gorgeous, madam.
This
Gorgeous.
was another outfit I wore the whole time before I got my my other thing.
Also, for reference, chat, the story me and Ada have told about the person shoving her, that's what she was wearing, by the way.
Yeah, when I got shoved, this is what I was wearing, and I called a slur.
Yeah.
They called me
When
a slur.
When someone shoved her, and called her a slur, this is what she was wearing.
Do I look like a slut to you?
Yeah, someone in that outfit. Someone shoved Ada and called her a slut.
Is it because you could see just a little bit skin?
Like,
Is that the reason?
I still want to kill that man. I still want to fucking trip him.
So we beating the man's.
Absolutely, Sherry.
But yeah, I was in shock. I didn't understand how that made me that. You know what I mean? You guys get it now?
I still don't understand.
I had everything covered. Just like a little chunks.
Holy shit.
Legs showed.
Yeah. Like, dear God.
Bruh, she just looked like a Texan that claps when the plane lands.
Yeah. Look like a fucking bloated face when I'm done with them anyways.
Dude, I freaking... Oh my god. But I'm hoping that I'll be able to wear things. Because so far...
Yeah.
I wish the hip area of the freaking... The overalls were more tighter in. Man, thought that was... Oh, I don't want to hear what he did. No, Yarun. Yarun, you were beautiful in every shape and form.
But yeah, God. Also, yeah, I really hope you're gonna be able to wear what you want to wear.
Same here. You're legit covered head to toe. Exactly, Sherry. Better be glad I wasn't there. Otherwise, my concealed carry would be much not concealed anymore. Oh my god, how dare you? No, you. I know, Yarun. I know for a fact. You know when we went to that freaking Firewatch, you look so beautiful. Your dress mixed with your hair, your freaking nice heels, your freaking necklace, all the rings you have, your face, everything was absolutely on point. You actually look like you could steal someone's heart with just a look.
Get him! Mess him up.
You cannot do this to me, Yarun. I know for a fact you are actually freaking gorgeous. Ha! Stop, I'm gonna cry on you. I'll accept it this one time.
This one time.
I just got here while I'm being shot because I'll always shoot you with my love.
See, you're like Knight, but it's kindness bullets that you're shot with.
Yeah, we don't really shoot Knight because we shoot Knight.
Yeah.
You know, you say that like you aren't beautiful yourself. You don't get the talking.
Yeah, absolutely fucking God.
No. Screw off. I'm not. Yarun is so much more gorgeous.
You're both gorgeous. I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Shut up. I swear to God. You're actually a Discord daddy for Selly. You can't say Jack.
Pardon moi?
You are a Discord daddy for Selly.
No, it's Zero.
No, you can't do that to him. He was already called a kitten. We all go Yarn and Ada are two gorgeous people. No. Ashley doesn't got a point. Neither does Yarun.
Sherry, you raised.
Oh no, my mom heard Yarun's name. Yarun, say hi to my mom. My mom misses her Filipino princess.
Oh, it's so
Madre.
sad.
I love you. Okay. She gave you kisses. Oh my god, I love it so much.
Have you?
Oh my god. Oh, she loves you too, Yarun.
I feel so bad. You're gonna have to break the news to your ma that it might be a while before she sees Yarun again.
Yeah, but
moving.
But yeah, she's fine with that though. Hello, mother. She left. She's cooking some stuff. Oh, but I need to finish doing my outfits as well. Oh my god, I'm so
Yeah, I agree. Oh yeah, how much longer you want to go, madam? Because today will be a shorter episode, chat. Again, just to remind you guys.
Yeah, we'll probably go like a few more minutes. Cause outfits, Yarun. Okay, Yarun, I need you to give me like outfit things. All right, you are like an outfit expert. I might need your help.
Yeah. Oh, literally just DM Yarun. Just get Yarun and be like, okay, I want this, and these are like my other options.
Yeah, yeah. Outfit
Mhm.
expert. Yarun, don't even start. We're not
Yarun,
doing this again.
Yarun,
We're not doing this
Yarun.
again.
Now listen. Usually I let Ada handle this, but I must step in. Yarun, you have
What do you mean again?
such a fucking amazing fashion sense. Your outfits are fucking gorgeous and they look great on you. And you're able to pick and make great outfits for people. You are super duper like fashionably sensible.
It absolutely scrotum. What?
What? What? What the hell did you just say to me?
I ain't say nothing. I ain't say nothing.
Yours cries in the corner.
Yaru, don't cry in the corner, because that's my corner. When I get in trouble, that's my corner. Stop it. Stop barking. Never.
They can't help themselves.
I can't.
It's the Shiba. It comes out.
It's weird. It surprisingly only comes out when I'm with certain groups.
Yeah.
When I'm at Ashley and stuff like that, I don't bark because I know for a fact they're just going to say, get in the cage.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want that. We can cry and grow mushrooms in the corner together. Yarun, I gotta show you my mushroom shirt.
Mushrooms. Oh yeah, has Yarun seen Lark?
Oh my god, Yarun, have you? Oh no, she hasn't.
Yeah, you gotta show him
let
Lark
me
and then show you fisting Lark.
Oh my god, I gotta show you Lark. I gotta, so, Yarn, I went to Five Below, right, and I got a lot of stuff. And I need to send you a picture of Lark.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I saw it at the party bus. Yeah! I
Lark.
fisted Lark. A lot of stuff here. I got a lot of stuff.
Oh my god, it was so funny.
Oh, God. Yeah. I got a lot of cool stuff, and it makes me so happy that I got all this stuff.
You got all the fucking goods. It's so fucking fun.
Yeah!
Oh
Because
my
Jesus
goodness.
Lord, me oh my. I'm freaking just, I'm
agree.
so excited. I'm just excited to see Ashley. Honestly, if the outfit doesn't go planned, I'm okay with that. As long as I get to see Ashley.
Yeah, that's all you want. I get you, fam.
God, I only saw Lark. I want to see it all. Oh my god. If I could, I would. We need to get in the call together so I can show you all the stuff.
Yeah, show them all
if
the
that is
goods.
okay with you, I would love to get in a call with you, Yarn, and show you all the stuff. Thank you for titties. And other stuff.
Yep. No, I got you.
I appreciate that. I'm excited for you. I'm glad you're going to be able to see your I'm going to actually assault them.
God, you really are. It's going to be
I'm
so
going
funny
to
to hear about.
I can be careful because his mom's going to be there.
No, I get you. I can't wait to hear the stories afterwards.
Oh, I'll tell you all the stories afterwards. I'd love to. Yeah. I want to show you also all the outfits. I need to show you guys the outfits and which ones you guys think would be best.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because I know for a fact I'm going to be bouncing and jumping around a lot. So something that has big movement for me would be a good idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because I may jump around and do a lot of things when I'm excited.
Well, it's almost like you're hyper.
It's almost like
God damn.
I'm grabbing a jacket. Where's my
Hey, yo. What the fuck? I think I just saw a splash art for a new Tristana skin. Maybe? I don't know if this is a leak or not because this person has drawn official art for other skins. Oh my god. All right, hold up. It's a I think it's a Vex skin.
I'm looking at this.
It's hard to tell.
Tear myself down to build back up again. Oh, I hope somehow I'll wake up again. But yeah, I freaking I'm gonna grab you by your beautiful face cheeks, Yarun, and I'm gonna drag you into a call after stream so you can help me discuss outfits. I want it to be a surprise for
Hell
Ashley.
yeah. Hell fucking yeah. Oh my god. Look at this.
Cause God, I'm not the best with fashion and what goes
Same.
together the most.
Dude, I would kill for Yarun to make me an outfit. I would literally take an outfit they would make and I would make it and wear it.
Yeah. I'd be 100% down. Yes.
Yarun literally has that good of a fashion sense. I would 100% trust them.
Exactly. Well, I trust Yarn whenever she puts me in. And I know I'll have the confidence
same.
for it because she thinks I look nice in it.
Yeah,
That's it.
Yarn, if you come make an outfit like just like a shirt, shorts, like shit like that, or not shorts, but like just like a full ass outfit and send it to me, I will fucking put it into a wish list and I will get it and I will wear it. I think you could make something that would actually make me look okay.
Yep, full on. Well, you could totally pull off the scene, but like, I know you're not super to that, but oh my god.
No, I would say I like scene look as well. Listen,
Yeah.
I am mainly just go goth because leather and straps are one of my favorite stuff. But like I like scene as well.
No,
and like grunge and stuff like that.
I love grunge.
Yeah, like I'm into that shit as well.
Oh my god, that skin is so nice.
You right? Look at it. It's so good. What the fuck?
Oh, excitement. Honestly, valid though, me too. Yeah. But this is probably where I think we should end it for now. So I still have some energy to do some other things I need to do.
Yeah, we can go do what you need to do. And get all the good. But yeah, chat, that is going to be us for today for Dead Hair episode 11. To recap, in the upcoming weeks, we're going to be doing special spooky themed episodes for the rest of the month. Next week, we will be having No Izzy, otherwise known as just Izzy, the wonderful bird themselves, coming onto the podcast to discuss monsters and stuff like that with us.
The only bird I appreciate.
Big true. We will be having some upcoming spooky streams, both on my channel and Ada's channel. Keep your eyes peeled on our Twitter for all kinds of updates and stuff like that. And yeah, look forward to the spooky goods, because we're going to be giving you lots.
I got here so late, I'm a sob. I know it's okay, Yaru. Thank you for the stream. Thank you for being here. Thank you, everybody, for coming to freaking Dead Hair episode 11. We got to them double digits. It's insane.
It's so crazy. We're actually in the double digits.
We're in the double digits and things are going so well.
We're going to have our first guest. I'm excited.
First guest, and it's going to be Izzy.
Yeah, the wonderful being themselves.
Exactly. But oh my god, thank you everybody for stopping on by. If you like the things that I do and want to see more from me, check out my Twitter. Please be careful. It is 18 plus, because God, Jesus Christ, I need to stop. If you want to support me anyway, I have a donation, and I have a throne. So if you guys want to go donate something to me or buy me a gift, it is highly appreciated. If you also want to go to my Discord, we're going to be doing some spooky movie nights, some community nights on my Discord soon, because I want to watch some more horror movies so bad.
Yeah, it is going to be dragging me off to watch horror movies.
Yeah! Also, if you want to check out the wonderful goon that is sitting across from me here, my freaking brother in Christ, the freaking Fogman himself, check out my wonderful friend Lich here. He also will be doing some coolio things, and I think you guys should definitely go check him out. Also, next week, it will also be on his channel, so keep your eyes peeled for that.
Yeah! Dead Hair will be over on my channel next week.
Yeah! But thank you, everybody, for stopping on by. I love you.
I agree. We love you guys. Thank you guys so much for supporting us for all these episodes. We're so glad that you guys enjoy them. And we're so glad that you guys just like watching us. Thank you so much. Couldn't have said it better myself. We hope you guys all have a wonderful day. Stay safe, hydrate. Much love to you. Love you too, Shiwi.
Make sure to grab people by the balls if they make you upset and pull.
True. And that's going to be it for us, chat. You guys all have a wonderful day. Mwah! Bye-bye.
Happy Spooky Month!
Spooky Month!